You're listening to the Call Kent podcast, where Kent C. Dodds answers questions and gives insights to software engineers like you. Now, let's hear the call.
I'm currently learning use reducer functionality in Epic React. I'm currently at action function. In the count reducer, you have mentioned type of action triple equal to function. So what is the significance of triple equal to in this instruction? Because type of always returns a string, and we are already comparing the result of type of with the string. So this can be achieved with double equal to also. Since we are using triple equal to, there will be a slight negligible increase in the computing. That's what I see. And more, what is the importance of triple equal to when we are already using Typescript in our application? Thank you.
And that was the call. Here's what Kent had to say.
Hey, Lennon, thanks for the question. So the significance is actually it's different than you might think. I prefer simple rules, and it works with the triple equal. And in fact, everything that I want to do works with the triple equal. And so there are a lot of rules that you could memorize to say, okay, in these situations you want to use double equals, in these situations you want to use triple. I learned all of those rules when I started JavaScript, and I tried my best to apply them, but I found it easier to just say, no, you know what, I'm just always going to do triple equals, and then I never have to think about it. And so I actually do a lot of this kind of thing. So in fact, it's the same reason that I don't use semicolons in my JavaScript, because there are actually more situations where a semicolon is not appropriate. Like if you say, okay, I'm always going to use semicolons, well, except at the end of a for loop, that curly brace, I don't need to have it. Or except at the end of a function, unless that function is a function expression, in which case I do need to have one, or and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas if you just say, okay, I'm just not going to use semicolons, and then there are just a handful of places where you do need to use semicolons. Like if you start a line with a parentheses or an open bracket, then you're going to need to use a semicolon on the previous line or at the start of that line. You don't really do that very often. There are lots of good reasons to not do that ever. And so I don't run into that exception very often. The other situation where you use a semicolon is in a for loop, and that's like kind of a completely different thing anyway. And so it's much easier to just say, I'm going to always do it this way, because there are fewer exceptions. And so it's the same thing with triple equals. I just always use triple equals because there are fewer situations where I need to worry about what's going to happen in that case. Another example of this is why I always use function expressions for my components and for like a lot of different things. I have a handful of simple rules of situations where I'm going to switch to use an arrow function. But for the vast majority of time, I'm going to be using a function declaration. And so anyway, when you have situations in syntax where there are more than one way to accomplish the same thing, then and each of those approaches is for all intents and purposes equal in its efficiency, efficacy, whatever, then I go with the one that requires fewer things for me to remember or think about. And triple equals all the time is easier than thinking about cases where it's okay to use double equals. So that's the reason. It's probably not what you were looking for. Good on you for recognizing situations where double equals would work just fine. I would actually say most of the time double equals is going to work just fine. but there are significant enough situations where it just doesn't work, and it's surprising. And so I just go with triple equals all the time. I hope that answers your question. Have a nice day.
This has been the Call Kent podcast. Learn more about Kent at kentcdodds.com and get your own questions answered at kentcdodds.com/calls.